it down! Hey, Cuomo, shut it down!
Hey, Cuomo,
Shut it down! Hey, Cuomo, shut it down!
What keeps you fighting?
shut it down! Hey,
Cuomo, shut this down! Hey!
The people gonna rise like a water, gonna calm this crisis down.
if we all stand up, we are all standing up.
When people ask me how I've managed to keep going for almost 5 years with 2 little kids, I basically answer that it is my little kids. Our home is 400 feet from this pipeline. Their elementary school is now 400 feet from an entirely new segment of this high-pressure fracked gas pipeline. They are in harm's way every single day when I tuck them in bed at night or put them on the bus to go to school. I need to know for myself that if the worst case happens and this pipeline ruptures, that I did anything and everything in my power to keep them safe. So basically what's kept me going for 5 years is regret management.
Our health, our safety, and our democracy is at stake right now for all New Yorkers and people all over the globe. And it's our responsibility here in New York. We have the best shot here in this state to lead the nation.
We'll flood the streets with justice. We are freedom bound. We have come too far. We can't turn around.
So often we talk about what we have to stop, what we have to fight, what we have to shut down. Well, we need to talk about what we have to build. We're going to talk about direct action for how we hold the space 1,500 people strong, or whatever we may be, out in the streets, in the Capitol, together. We want to make this as accessible to as many people as possible who are coming from across the state, from more than across the state, for people who are coming from all range of experiences with their activism.
New Yorkers are smart. They also know that Cuomo's the man who can stop it, and that he's the decision maker.
We are here to bring a message to Andrew Cuomo that there is no healthy way to burn gas in a compressor station. There is no healthy pipeline. We are done with your infrastructure. The movement is growing.
If we are loud enough
Cuomo, stop!
and strategic enough, we can get Governor Cuomo to move off fossil fuels, which is what we need for New York and for the planet.
Cuomo, you can't hide!
Everybody that I've met that has faced the bullying from the fossil fuel and the nuclear industry, this is really about truth and this is really about justice.
Stand up, fight back! When our communities are under attack, what do we do? Stand up, fight back!
Fighting fracking infrastructure have escalated to civil disobedience on their local pipeline, power plant, and waste dump and storage. There's over 1,000 of us who have put our bodies on the line to stop fossil fuel infrastructure in New York State. We got together with all the people that have put their bodies on the line and our attorneys, and we really walked through what does this all look like, and the escalation has to come to Governor Cuomo's front doorstep because he has created his government to have complete control over all of our state agencies, and that is unacceptable.
People on the rise like the water. We're gonna fix this crisis now.
Sheridan Hollow is a community of color that was poisoned in the 90s by a trash burning facility that ultimately got shut down.
Governor Cuomo has proposed to build a fracked gas power plant on Sheridan Avenue, just a few feet from people's homes, in order to power the Empire State Plaza.
To literally poison the very same people who've already been poisoned for the sake of powering our politics in New York State sums up the hypocrisy of Cuomo calling himself a climate leader and yet thinking this is somehow acceptable.
It's the most heinous project happening in New York State right now.
We breathe and the water we drink.
drink.
And the whole planet.
The Algonquin pipeline expansion runs 105 feet from critical safety infrastructure at Indian Point Nuclear Power Plant. So if something were to go wrong with the pipeline in the vicinity of Indian Point, there are 20 million people living in the evacuation radius, or the 50-mile radius around Indian Point Nuclear Power Plant. Governor Cuomo has announced that the plant is closing. A lot of people think that that eliminates the risks, but actually there's 40 years of irradiated fuel stored there and nowhere for it to go. And if 1,500 tons of irradiated fuel were to be set on fire by a pipeline rupture, we're looking at a major radiological release and basically a national disaster in that area. Even if that worst case scenario doesn't happen, if this pipeline is operating and pumping out methane and all the contaminants that go along with it for the next 2 decades or more, we're looking at significant health impacts. My community in Peekskill, New York is an environmental justice community. We have a lot of black and brown people that live there, and we already have an undue amount of polluting infrastructure, both from industry and other sources. So we're already dealing with those health impacts, and this pipeline exacerbates that.
We know that all of these fights that were brought up, there's so many people involved in all of that, right? And that's our strength. There's a lot of people affected and impacted by these dangers, but there's a lot of people angry who are standing in their truth and standing together to fight that. So that's what we have in this space today.
We absolutely have the ability and the money and the technology to go 100% renewable. We also have the ability to make that 100% renewable to be community-led or community-owned in smaller microgrids that would help to alleviate the price structure that we have today.
I'm the coordinator of the New York City Community Energy Cooperative. I'm also the chairperson of Co-op Power, a regional
There's an interest in it that I'm finding everywhere we go. The question is it realistic? Can it work for them? We see the possibility for really being able to make a difference, being able to create these new models of energy production that can be controlled by communities in a decentralized, horizontal way instead of the vertically integrated, controlled by outside forces, shareholders thousands of miles away, with decisions being made that don't care about how it impacts on local residents. We can now actually be able to make that happen and see the difference in relatively short periods of time. Our part is just getting the people and talking to them. So whether it's, going to church basements, going to meeting rooms, coming to bar club meetings, and just describing it. And then usually after that, all folks want to know is, sign me up. How do I make it happen?
Demand and fight, because we're not going to get this without a fight. We must get a grasp on what it is that we actually want to build, and it's about sharing stories, connecting with your community, not staying in your house and being scared, but talking to your community and dreaming. Dreaming is a really big part of this, because if we don't dream and we don't imagine a better world that we can build, then we won't be able to build that world.
Are you hungry? Yeah. Are you hungry for justice?
Oh yeah. What keeps you fighting?
Yeah. Are you hungry for freedom?
Oh yeah.
My spirit.
Yeah. Are you hungry for renewables?
Oh yeah.
Are you hungry?
Yeah.
One more.
Come and take a walk with me through this green and growing land. Walk through the meadows and the mountains and the sand. Walk through the valleys and the rivers and the plains. Walk through the sun and walk through the rain. Here is a land full of power and glory, beauty that words cannot recall. Oh, her power shall rest on the strength of her freedom. Her glory shall rest on us all. From Colorado, Kansas, and the Carolinas to Virginia and Alaska, from the old to the new, Texas and Ohio and the California shore. Tell me who could ask for more?